Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Storytime. Miss Moss and I decided we'd change it slightly. So we're going to share one book over the next couple of days. So the book is called Treasure Island, and it's based on the original story by Robert Louis Stevenson. So I'll begin. I hope you're ready, pirates. I'll never forget the night I first met the bloodthirsty pirate Billy Bones. A great storm was blowing in from the sea, and the wind was shaking the walls of the Admiral Benbow Inn, which my mother and I owned and ran. Thunder bellowed and lightning streaked across the sky. Then between the rolls of thunder, I heard a man coming down the path, singing an old pirate shanty. 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. This was followed by a loud banging at the door, and I opened it to find that our visitor was a tall man with a vivid red scar across his left cheek. He wore a filthy blue coat and carried a cutlass, knife and pistol in his belt. He was dragging a heavy chest behind him, which he dropped on the floor as he entered the inn. "I'm Billy Bones," he declared grandly. "No doubt you've heard of me." I shook my head, and he looked rather offended. "Who are you, then?" he asked. "Jim Hawkins," I answered nervously. "Well, Master Hawkins, do you get many visitors here?" he asked. When I told him that our inn was a quiet place, he seemed very, very pleased. "Good," he said. "I'm not wanting to see any strangers, or old friends for that matter," he added darkly. I served him a quick meal and showed him to his room. He lugged his trunk up the stairs and slid it under the bed. I locked up the inn and went to my own bed, hoping that Billy Bones would not stay for long. Billy stayed for a few weeks, and then a few weeks more. He was a terribly unpleasant guest, and he drove our other customers away. Worst of all, he constantly carried his knife and his pistol. My mother was too afraid to ask him to leave, though he had not paid her a penny since he'd arrived. One day, another man came looking for Billy Bones. This man had a patch over one eye, 2 missing fingers, and a cutlass. He couldn't have looked more like a pirate if he'd bought a costume. Billy was out, so the man sat near the fire and waited. When Billy finally came back through the door, he let out a low hiss. "Black Dog, you lily-livered scoundrel," he snarled. "If it isn't my old friend Billy Bones," sneered Black Dog, "I believe you have something that belongs to me and the crew." "You'll never get that map from me," said Billy. With that, he launched himself across the room at Black Dog, and a great struggle ensued. The 2 pirates kicked and hit and bit each other. They pulled at each other's hair and poked at each other's eyes. It was not at all like the valiant fights I had read about in my favourite pirate stories. Finally, Black Dog backed away. "You turn over that map by 10 o'clock tonight, or I'll be back with the rest of the crew," he shouted as he ran out of the inn. Once Black Dog was gone and Billy and I were alone, he slumped down into a chair and demanded some rum. Even though I hadn't said a word, he began to tell me his story. "It all began with Captain Flint," he said, and suddenly I was excited. Now that was a pirate I'd heard of. Captain Flint was the most famous, horns-waggling scallywag to ever sail the 7 seas. It was also very well known that he had buried a massive pile of treasure in a secret location, and that he had kept the secret all the way to his grave. Billy told me that he'd sailed with Captain Flint for many years. On his deathbed, Flint handed Billy the only map that showed where his treasure was hidden. The rest of the crew had elected Billy as the new captain, and Billy had promised that together they would find the treasure and share it between them. But as soon as night fell, Billy jumped ship and ran away with the map, and that's how he came to the Admiral Benbow Inn. "Shiver me timbers! But there's only one thing for it," said Billy, wringing his hands together. He was pale with worry. "I'll have to weigh anchor and clear out of here before 10 o'clock. And with that, he jumped out of his seat and hurried up the stairs. I must admit, I was glad that Billy was finally leaving, but I was also quite concerned about what would happen to my mother and me when his gang of cutthroat pirates arrived to find Billy gone and the map with him. But I needn't have worried about any of that, because as Billy reached the top step, he suddenly turned, clutched at his chest, went stiff as a statue, and tumbled all the way back down to the bottom of the stairs. He'd been so worried about getting caught that his heart had given out, and so Billy Bones was no more. And that's where I'll end the story today. Tune in tomorrow for the continuation of Treasure Island. Bye!